There are some Coronation Street twists that completely change the way you look at a storyline, and tonight's episode did exactly that. Because the truth about Megan Walsh's pregnancy is finally out, and it is far darker and more complicated than she let everyone believe. For a while, everything was pointing in one direction. Megan had made Maggie believe that an alleged assault was linked to the loss of her baby, and that immediately put Maggie under huge pressure. It created the kind of situation where emotions, guilt, and suspicion were all tangled together, especially once DS Lisa Swain arrived at the Rovers and started asking questions. From that moment, it was clear this was no longer just private heartbreak. It had become something much bigger, with real consequences for everyone involved. Maggie, though, did not fall apart under questioning. She admitted she had gone to Megan's flat and admitted things had become tense. But when the accusation of assault was raised, she stayed remarkably controlled. That is what makes Maggie such an unsettling figure in this storyline. She does not react like someone who has lost control. She reacts like someone who is always calculating, always trying to stay one step ahead, and that makes her even more dangerous to watch. At the same time, Megan looked completely overwhelmed. She was clearly in deep distress and kept insisting that Maggie was to blame for losing the baby, strongly suggesting that the alleged attack had caused it. On the surface, it looked like Megan was clinging to that version of events because she was hurt and desperate. But there was also a sense that she was hiding something much deeper, because even in those emotional scenes, there were gaps in what she was willing to say. Maggie quickly pushed the focus in another direction by bringing up the father of the baby. Megan refused to say who it was, but Maggie clearly had her own suspicions. That detail matters because it shows Maggie was not only thinking about the accusation itself. She was trying to get to the secret underneath it, and that secret turned out to be the real heart of the story. The biggest reveal came later in therapy, and it completely changed everything. In that session, Megan finally broke down and told the truth. She had not miscarried at all. She had chosen to terminate the pregnancy. That confession instantly redefines her earlier behavior, because it shows that Megan was not only grieving, she was also carrying enormous fear, guilt, and shame. What makes her confession especially painful is the reason behind it. Megan explained how much she had wanted a family, and after struggling to conceive because of PCOS, this pregnancy had meant everything to her. That is what gives the scene its emotional weight. This was not a careless decision or something that meant little to her. It was clearly something that tore her apart. She wanted the baby, but at the same time, she felt trapped by what the pregnancy represented and by the identity of the father. That is where the story becomes even messier, because the real reason for hiding the truth was to protect who the father was, with teenage Will right at the center of it. That secret changes the emotional balance of the entire plot. Megan was not just protecting herself, she was protecting information that could blow up multiple lives at once. It also explains why she seemed so desperate to control the narrative. Once the truth came out, there was no way to contain the fallout. Psychologically, Megan now feels like someone cracking under the weight of too many unbearable emotions at once. She is grieving a choice she made herself, frightened about what that choice says about her, and terrified that she may never get another chance at motherhood. On top of that, she is carrying the burden of a secret tied to Will. That combination makes her volatile, unpredictable, and vulnerable, because she is no longer simply hiding something. She is emotionally drowning in it. Maggie, on the other hand, feels dangerous in a very different way. Megan is falling apart openly, but Maggie stays cold and composed. That kind of calm is what makes the next stage of this storyline so worrying, especially because viewers already know Maggie has killed before after murdering her husband, Alan. Once a show reminds the audience of a character's violent past, it is rarely meaningless. It puts everyone on alert. That is exactly why fan speculation is now getting much darker. Megan is one of the 5 possible victims teased in the April 23rd flashforward, alongside Theo, Carl, Maggie, and Jody, so there is already reason to believe something very serious is coming. And one theory in particular is getting attention because it fits the tone of where this story may be heading. The idea is that if Megan ends up dead, Maggie could be the one responsible. That alone would be explosive. But the theory goes even further by suggesting Maggie might frame Eva Price for the crime. If that happened, it would create a brutal twist where Eva becomes the perfect scapegoat, giving her a dramatic exit while leaving Maggie free and keeping the Ben storyline open at the same time. What makes that theory interesting is not just the shock factor. It actually lines up with the kind of manipulative energy Maggie brings into every scene. She does not just defend herself, she redirects, controls, and studies people. So the thought of her turning a murder into a setup would not feel random. It would feel like the darkest extension of the traits she is already showing. Eva being dragged into it would also be devastating, because that kind of storyline instantly turns her from bystander to victim in a completely different sense. A prison sentence for a murder she did not commit would be a brutal way to push her out of Weatherfield. And because Catherine Tildesley is due to take a short filming break for the Good Ship murder, the timing naturally makes people wonder whether the show could use that absence for something huge. Right now, the most important thing is that Megan's secret has completely changed the narrative. She did not lose the baby the way people believed. She made a heartbreaking decision and then buried the truth to protect Will's identity. But instead of calming things down, that secret may have opened the door to something even worse. And with Maggie involved, it is hard to believe this will end quietly. If the show keeps pushing in this direction, Megan could be heading for a tragic outcome, and Eva may be far closer to danger than she realizes. One secret has already exploded. The next one could destroy several lives at once. Subscribe for more Coronation Street updates, theories, and breakdowns.